need to make a statement, Damien. Plain and simple. Although, I really don't know what you could say at this point to gain the trust from the community. I don't think there is anything that you could say. YouTube channel, gone. Socials, gone. Website, gone. What? He emptied the factory before they even got there. This isn't just gonna go away, Damien.
My opinion on it's not very popular. Believe me, a couple $1,000s means something to me too. I think those of us that have lost deposits are one thing. I think the people that they emailed and indicated, hey, your machine's 6 weeks out, let's go ahead and go ahead and pay in full. And then they did, and they never got a machine. Now you're talking about some serious damages.
Haggis Pinball. A pinball manufacturer that went from full transparency, making promises, taking money, to failing on those promises, keeping the money, and then erasing itself from the internet. Now, the assumed reason why Haggis failed was due to COVID-19. Damien even stated that COVID-19 nearly killed their company.
How did COVID-19 really affect you as a pinball manufacturer?
Well, I mean, to be completely honest, it probably wasn't that far off actually sinking the entire company.
But what if I told you that was a lie? Damien's been lying to all of us. Damien had little faith in Haggis Pinball, so little that he never put a single dime of his own money into the company. This and much more I'm looking to reveal to all of you as information gets leaked out. In this series I'm calling Unboxing the Truth.
In this horrible story, I am a tiny slice of it. So many people got so tremendously hurt.
He said that money was going into an escrow account.
How much money do you think that Damien has stolen from you?
He clearly lied, and it can be proven that he's lied, and he's been deceptive and misleading, and all of those things that don't make a good individual.
You've probably been in the hobby for how long?
I was looking at some of my old photographs in my phone trying to discern that. I would say the first or early second quarter of 22.
Okay. And so, like, how did you discover Haggis in general? Like, as, like, first impressions, kind of thing. How did it come on your feed? You discovered them?
Yeah.
What happened?
Well, I saw some of the videos on YouTube. I was building a collection. I'm mostly modern, almost all new in box, because frankly, I'm trying to become a better technician on these machines, and it's a learning process and a rather steep learning curve. And I wanted to go with classics. So then when I saw that people were remaking them, well, then I got my CGCs. I was able to secure some of those, and I saw, okay, what about Fathom? So by the time I contacted Haggis and got on their website, all the Mermaid editions is sold out, but they still had the classic. And I did the deposit directly with them, I think $1,200 to $1,500, and just kind of forgot about it. Then, as you remember, they caused all that turmoil when they said, okay, we're going to offer the Mermaid type programming for everybody.
Now, in hindsight, this was a red flag because they were only going to be making so many mermaids and so many of the classic editions. And one thing that majorly separated the limited edition or the mermaid edition from being the lower tier was the 2.0 code. So a year goes by and now they're offering those that have the classic edition the ability to pay an extra fee to upgrade their classics to essentially a Mermaid Edition, which makes the Mermaid Edition less limited. You're getting the missing main feature with the 2.0 code. And I would love to say that this isn't, common, but it's becoming much more common these days that manufacturers start things out being limited and they make it basically no longer limited so they can bring in more cash flow.
So I contacted Haggis and said, hey, I want that too. So they said, great. So I ordered that as well. And then Flippin' Out became a distributor, and I followed them rather closely. And then I found out they had a new inbox in stock. And I thought, well, that's unusual. And actually, it was kind of a red flag, Cary, because I thought, well, what about all these people that don't have one yet, but yet the distributor has one in stock? Something's not right. But I thought, I'm going to go ahead and get it. So I got it, contacted Haggis, and Damien said, fantastic. We'll take your deposit. We'll apply that to, and by that time, by the way, the timeline is getting kind of tight, but I had also ordered an Oblivion, the Centaur. He said, okay, we'll take the deposit you put on the Classic, and when your machine is built, we'll take that off as well. And then, but you'll have the deposit with Flippin' Out as well. I said, okay, no problem. And so that's how that started.
Just got some more images and video of a Fathom where the plate build is lifting. This is probably one of the worst ones I've seen. That would suck. You spend thousands of dollars, waited who knows how long, then you finally get it, and it's essentially unplayable.
So I think, definitely in hindsight, for me, is like the first red flag was whenever they decided to go, hey, you know what? We're going to give everyone the ability to upgrade their Classic to a Mermaid kind of thing. Yeah. And it was like, I think that was another way to hopefully get some more cash flow in kind of thing. It's like, because a lot of people.
I'm one of the guys that I jumped on that immediately. Mm-hmm. I thought it was great. I thought that was great, but you're right that in hindsight, that was a red flag.
And so I've got this email from an individual saying that they've received their Mermaid Edition evidently this year, not too long ago, and that they've had some interesting conversations with Damien and his wife and would be happy to share with me details. So of course I respond back with yes. And I have yet to get a response back from that email.
And that's the thing about this is like especially with reading everything, and when I put out that video, my latest one about Haggis, like during the stream of that, the premiere, I'm getting messaged that, hey, they're no longer on social media. They're no longer on YouTube. I'm like, what? And so I start going through and I start seeing that, like, yeah, they're basically wiping everything. It's like they had my video on, and while my video's playing, they're wiping and clearing their stuff off the internet kind of thing. And that day is when I guess they signed over to liquidation. But I think what the most damning thing about that whole thing is that they knew they were going into liquidation, so it looks like they cleared out as much as they possibly could before the liquidators came in to start putting tags on everything and taking an entire inventory of stuff. So it's like, I wonder what all he took and put into a storage facility somewhere and that eventually he's going to sell off or do whatever with kind of thing.
Although the frustrating thing about it, Cary, I'll bring my story a little further, because here's the other side of me dealing with Damien where, I thought it was a scam, but he was actually doing what he said. I get the Fathom. Beautiful game, by the way. Absolutely gorgeous. Very well packaged. Set it up, play it. And my tech came over to take a look at it, and we're testing it. And he's going, the path of the ball's not right over here. Something's wrong. So we pulled the glass, and it had a bubble in the play field. The play field had delaminated. So I took a video, I sent it to Zach, and I think I sent one to Damien direct. So Damien reaches out and says, hey, we've seen this problem. You're not the only one. We thought we'd caught them before they went out. You're going to need a repopulated play field. My problem is the play field is so extraordinarily heavy, I have to engineer a crate to ship it. And I'm going to test it, and I'm going to do this. And I said, great. Is there some way I can just try to repair this one? He said, oh no, this play field is extremely different from a normal play field. I wouldn't want to try to do it. It's a friction fit. It's not an adhesive. You're going to need a fully populated play field.
All right, so let's talk about this playfield issue that Michael was mentioning. And this is actually becoming more common with other Haggis games. The material that he decided to use to put on top of his playfields, the wood portion to give it protection, is becoming delaminated, and it's separating from the playfield. And this is due to heat. Needless to say, that is a very big problem that is not an easy fix.
I said, okay. Well, this dance went on for about 5 months. And then Zach reached out to me with Flipping Out, and in an extraordinary customer service indicated to me that, hey, you've danced with this long enough. We'll either refund you directly, we will take a store credit, or ship it back to, or we'll have it shipped back to me, and I'll have it repaired here by a guy that wants to take that project on that I have a lot of faith in. So I took the store credit. So in hindsight, buying from Flipping Out really saved me on that. If I'd bought direct, I'd be stuck with an orphan that didn't really work. Then I found out like a month ago on Facebook, I think I sent you the photos. Mm-hmm. There was a guy on Facebook that said, hey, I had a problem with my Fathom, and the exact same story I had, and he took a photo of the crate, and sure enough, there it was. And it looks like a space capsule. He engineered it, aluminum, steel, everything. And I'm like, well, gosh, he wasn't lying, was he? He was going to do that. So, on the one hand, we're like, Haggis, the bad guy, and I get that, especially if they took full money from people and then never sent the product. That's a whole different level from people that lost their deposits. But he apparently was trying to do what he said. So had me scratching my head a little bit, Cary.
Yeah. That's what I think was the most damning, is when telling people that, hey, your game's ready to go, or we're going to start building it. Be ready in 6 weeks. We need full payment. I've always
made a distinction between those people and those of us that lost deposits.
Yeah.
And then I had a deposit down on Centaur. And then again, back to Flipping Out, and Zach going above and beyond saying, hey, I'll refund your money. I told him, and look, this is just me. I'm not casting dispersion on anybody else. This is just the way I feel. I'm like, Zach, I knew what I was getting into. I knew that there were some problems with this company. I ordered the machine anyway. I'm not going to accept a refund. I'm just not going to accept it.
Yeah.
I appreciate the offer. Thanks, but no thanks. Now, everybody else, more power to you, no problem. It's just me. As a guy that runs a business, I am not going to tag a distributor on an informed decision that I made.
Now, this email is a little bit longer, but it states, for starters, the entire crew worked right through the whole pandemic. How? All of them had legitimate work permits. How? Management exploited a loophole where if you installed a click and collect button on your website, you instantly became a safe online retail shop and could therefore continue operating or manufacturing without missing a beat. And it gets better. Not only did the entire crew work right through, but most of them also put in huge amounts of overtime, predominantly unpaid. Nearly all suppliers continued supplying in normal fashion and speed, with only a few overseas deliveries being delayed or with a slight price hike. And for the icing on the cake, Haggis was paid many lump sums of cash from the government to see the business through the worst of it and keep them viable. This continued not only during the duration of COVID-19, but also even after lockdowns were lifted. COVID-19 was a very convenient excuse to cover up immediate other issues confronting them when production began in the new factory. It was a sympathy card and got played on many occasions. It actually became part of the marketing mantra. No matter what the subject was, make sure you mention COVID, 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 COVID. And that sympathy bought them time that was much needed to try and steer the shit show that was going on behind the scenes back on track. So, once again, information, but I've got no evidence to back it up.
You know, you had a lot of people that were still holding on to hope that, you know, eventually it's going to take a long time, but we're going to get more games. And that was with me, even though things definitely did not look good. And it's one of those things where during the unboxing and stuff like that and talking with people, it was, I think all of us were in agreement that we don't know if they're going to make it kind of thing. And then it was like, well, at least they're still making games. But it's like, how are they still making games? Well, obviously they're still making games from getting money from people saying like, hey, we need your $10,000 or whatever for your Fathom. Their game's ready to go in 6 weeks. I'm just curious of how many people they had working there, because as slow as the games were coming out, and that was my thing. I'm like, you know what? They're still making games. They're still getting them out the door. I mean, I can beat on them, but, you know, at least they're still getting games out. But it's whenever I heard that, hey, they haven't made any games in like 45 days or something like that. There's been no communication, especially with Zach, no communication. That's where I was like, okay, hold up, no. Do not pass go, do not collect any more deposits kind of thing. What the hell's going on kind of thing. And
I wonder how many fully paid people they shafted like
that's definitely something I would like to hopefully get a tally for kind of thing, and just to get a ballpark or an idea of how much money exactly got thrown their direction, and they never, you know, nothing ever came from it kind of thing.
Yeah, because that's a quantum leap from what we're talking about. But again, I know a lot of people cumulatively lost a lot of deposits, and I get it. Yeah. I got very lucky on the Fathom. On the Centaur, my eyes were wide open. And again, just my personal opinion. For me, that's on me. It's not on anybody else.
Was there a point that you just kind of like knew you were never going to see a Centaur? Was it?
Oh yeah. I probably just a couple of weeks after I put the deposit down.
Already regret. Just like
I wrote it off. Well, I wrote it off. I was just like, hey, if I see it, fantastic, you know, and I can hear people screaming on Pinside, oh, you know, it didn't mean, you know, the money didn't mean anything to you or whatever. And that's not the case at all. It's just, I look for the best pieces I can for the collection. I'm a collector, and I thought that looked like a beautiful game. And definitely when you unbox that one, it didn't change my mind.
Yeah.
In fact, the only hope I ever had was when you broadcast that, and I go, damn, they might just pull this off.
In my mind, I was like, this is probably the only Centaur we're ever going to see. Now, in my mind, I was also hoping that we would see more, but a part of me is also like, this is probably going to be the only one.
I think the two major aggrieved parties in this whole thing would be those that they contacted and said, pay us and you're 6 weeks from your game. And I guess the number 2 would have to be the, about the season pass thing.
Yeah.
That you could, yeah.
So let's talk about this series ticket thing and what this was. And I believe this was announced whenever he first announced that he was doing the Classic Series games. And what the whole series ticket did was basically, hey, give us a deposit for every game coming up right now in one lump sum, which was, I want to say, like $6,000. And that dedicates you first in line and a machine ready to go whenever they are ready to be produced, kind of thing. It was basically like a fast pass, essentially, and you were guaranteed a game. And so I don't know how many series ticket holders put in money, but there had to have been some of you out there. And that was $6,000, like I said, just basically like, hey, put me down. I want one of each of the games that you produce, and I want to be first in line to get it. That's what that promise essentially was.
That was another thing. I'm curious of how many people went in on that.
Man, I even thought about it.
I think that's the lowest of the low right now, is the fact that he still has not at least, bare minimum, issued a statement.
Yeah, I know.
Acknowledge that, hey guys, we failed, whatever, and do a freaking PR to the T, like a company memo kind of thing. But the fact that he just basically wants to just wash his hands and duck his head in the sand and tell everybody else to kick sand, I mean, that's where I'm like, that's pretty messed up.
I mean, it blows my mind because, I hate to keep harping on it, but to be honest with you, by that last email from Damien about, hey, thank you for your patience. We're working on that crate. And I thought, this is a bunch of fucking bullshit. I was like, I practically started laughing. I said, hey, pull the other one. But I didn't say nothing to him. I'm like, yeah, pal. And when I saw that on Facebook, my jaw hit the floor. I said, he actually fucking did it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I saw I saw the case too, and someone's playfield populated got sent out. I was like, oh man, that's cool. So they're helping out customers. Another thing to kind of give you just enough hope to where you're like, they might be able to do something, or maybe they might just do it. My faith was so low, but it was low enough to where I was like, I wouldn't give them money. But I'm like, because I'm not waiting that long for a game, and especially with what I'm reading online. And that's the thing, is that a lot of these warnings that people could have had via Pinside, it's like a lot of people don't get on Pinside, and I don't blame them, because I don't like getting on there either, kind of thing. But definitely a lot of people were complaining and having their issues and how long they paid in full and stuff. And I'm just like, man, that would suck. It's like, so if for you, what if you would have gotten a request and paid for full for your Centaur?
Oh, dude, I've thought about that. And I hate to admit it, but I probably would have done it. I probably would have. I'm that bad, man. We're all lunatics in this hobby. Come on.
So here's a question. Like, if you could go back in time, at what point in time would you have told yourself, no, don't, when it comes to Haggis?
I guess after that last email from Damien going, look, we've successfully tested the crate, and we'll get to this. And thank you so much for, my bullshit meter was pretty pegged by that point, but I didn't say anything ugly to him. I didn't say anything back. I was just, because I could tell from the written word, or what I think the intent was, is I didn't feel, I thought he was using his best effort, but I still thought it was bullshit. And then he comes in when I saw that Facebook page. I said, I was really, really stunned that he actually was doing what he said, which makes this whole thing even a little bit more mysterious.
But I still think that Damien should still come forward and fall on the sword and say something, but it seems like he's going to take the cowardly way out and just hide himself.
Hate to see that. Hate to see that, because like I said, even in this horrible story, and I am a tiny slice of it. So many people got so tremendously hurt. You can still see these things where he was doing what he said he would do.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having trouble reconciling the guy that would take the money from people in a full amount and then not send them a game and know that he's not going to send them a game.
Yeah. One of the things that I've got to do in this whole project is that I'm having to weed out the bad eggs. And when I say that, it's that I get emails from people with information, but there's no evidence to back it up. And a lot of this could easily be assumptions. They saw this, or they know a person and they saw that, and so the assumption is this. And it's like, I too am somebody that has like received negativity for actions because they think it's this and it actually wasn't. And it's like, no, that is not how it happened. That is not the truth. And that's going to be the big issue with this project, is that I think even when the truth is revealed, I do not feel it's going to be enough for a lot of people. And you're going to have the deniers that are just going to refuse the truth. So it's a matter of just like, it's going to have to be, it is what it is.
So I had my eye on the Fathom for quite a while. I wasn't excited enough to pre-order one. And it seemed like they were kind of trickling out. So I wasn't excited enough to get in the back of the line to get one. But one point, probably around a year ago, Flipping Out had one or two coming in. And so I caught wind of that, and I was like, going through distributor and getting one sooner than later, I'll spring. So I played one at the Northwest Pinball Expo a few months previously, I think in spring of 2023, and I liked it. I mean, it's visually, it's just a stunning game. Sounds cool, and it's different than anything else, any of the modern stuff. So it's figured it'd be a nice add to my collection. So got a hold of Flipping Out. It was on its way over. We worked it all through them and took delivery, about a month later, once it got through customs. And so I was traveling. I wasn't able to open it right away. So finally, it was Saturday or Sunday, nice summer day out here. I finally got into it. So I opened the box, and I think I had watched an unboxing video beforehand, so I kind of knew what to expect. But I opened the box, got the legs out. So first thing, I look at the legs, and I'm like, oh, there's no leg levelers on here. So kind of poke around the rest of the box and make sure everything's unpacked, and there's no leg levelers. So I text Zach, and he actually texted me back right away, and he's like, "Hey, sorry, I've got plenty. I'll get some sent out Monday." So cool.
So the problem that Doug is stating right here with him not having leg levelers, it's definitely very plausible. I mean, the Centaur that I unboxed didn't have a power cable. It's a very important piece, luckily pretty universal, but there was no power cable. And another thing along with that is that one out of the 8 leg bolts was a different size of head on it. Little weird stuff like that kind of makes you wonder about the whole QC process at Haggis.
So I wound up in the meantime, I just go and steal some off one of my other pins, get the legs on, get it down, opened up, and power it on. Good so far. Launched the first ball, and the ball goes a third of the way up the shooter lane, maybe half the way up the shooter lane. I'm like, all right. Yeah. So unfortunately, with the older games, there's no auto plunge or whatever. So you just got to wait for the machine to go in the ball search mode. So eventually the ball kicks out and bounces around kind of funny and drains on me. And then I try it again. And of course, I can't eject. So I wait for the ball search. Ball goes out. And I'm like, there's something not right here. There's a magnet out there where the game is just really cocked on me. Maybe I put the leg levelers on wrong or something. And so I start looking at it a little closer, and it's like I can see a shadow kind of in the playfield. And I wasn't familiar with this playfield. It's not like the Stearns where it's, it's, I don't know how they make them, but it's like it's printed right on there. So I can see a shadow between the playfield and the art beneath that. So I pop off the glass and I'm looking at it closer, and sure enough, I go and push on the playfield, and it's got give to it. And it's got a bulge in the playfield. Again, I thought maybe at first it was warped, but it was definitely a bulge of some sort. And so I take a ball and I roll it, and sure enough, it's like rolling uphill. It just scoots back down again. So yeah, the leg levelers were annoying. The plunger thing, even on a new stern, sometimes you need to kind of align that a little bit to make it plunge perfectly. So I was okay up to that point, but then the playfield thing, I was like, all right, this we've got a problem here. And so, I reach out to Zach and get a response right away, and he commits to reaching out to Haggis first thing on Monday. And that's kind of where the wheels just fell off. Zach and Greg were both attempting to reach Haggis, and communication was, I would say, poor. I would reach out, and Greg would say, "Hey, I reached out to the Haggis folks on Monday. I haven't heard anything yet. If I don't hear right Friday, I'll reach out to them again." And so, in that context, I felt very fortunate that I hadn't bought direct from Haggis, because I even had tried to go to the Haggis website, and there was an area where you could contact them, but it didn't work. Maybe it was just my computer, but you couldn't even communicate with Haggis. There was nothing, no communicating online. I started going through the message boards and Pinside and all that, looking for other people having the same issue. And I was able to find the shooter lane thing, but nothing about the playfield issue. I left the machine as it was, just pending some sort of resolution. And what I eventually heard back was that Haggis was going to figure out how to ship a playfield over. They needed to design a crate or a box or something like that. And I was kind of like, okay. And so more time is elapsing, and I'm getting more and more frustrated because, frankly, if it's important, one, I would have expected a very prompt response from the game manufacturer. And two, for someone building pinball machines, if you need to build a box to ship a playfield, I get it, it's going a long way, but it's not rocket science. Cary, I bet if you needed to make a box tomorrow to ship a playfield, I bet you could do it in 24 hours.
Now, I'm going to go over this in more detail later in this segment of the video, but it's like I need to explain this to some people here, is that Haggis was trying to implement something that a lot of us have a problem with these days with pinball machines, and that's the dimpling. Sadly, that's never going to go away. Sorry, guys, the kind of wood that we use in pinball machines these days, the steel ball is harder than the wood, unless you've got some really awesome clear coat. Even then, you're going to be prone to some dimpling. So they were trying to basically provide us with a game that we wouldn't have to worry about dimpling anymore. And their process for doing this was putting, it's not a glass, but let's just imagine for mind's sake that there's a sheet of really durable glass now set on top of your wooden art playfield. Now, there's holes that have been drilled to basically parallel with the holes that are already drilled for the playfield, but now you need to screw down all the hardware and the mechs and stuff like that to it. Not a big deal, you would think, but you have two different types of materials, and you also have the problem of bolting things down too tight. And whenever this material is evidently got a small pressure point in a single area, it cracks. So that in itself is a big problem, because manufacturing with something like this, accidents happen. But now you've made it even more difficult to create and manufacture a product due to trying to improve something. I think this is something that they didn't do the whole protective layer over the playfield. I think that it would have been much easier also to manufacture, save some on cost. But I think this is definitely something that's not going to be able to be repaired easily by those that have a game right now with the playfield bubbling up like Doug's here, and even the game that Mike had earlier on this video. This is Something that if you wanted to fix it yourself, you would have to disassemble the entire playfield. And this is what Haggis knew. Haggis knew that it wasn't going to be an easy repair because of the way they built their playfields. They couldn't send out a new playfield with a new sheet of material to go on top of it and say, hey, all you got to do is move over all the hardware, because they knew how sensitive the material was, and it would just be a mess for having to depend on individuals who probably have no manufacturing experience or dealing with a drill and stuff like that to move all this hardware over. And if you've seen the bottom of this game, there's a lot on the back that a majority of people are not going to want to have to deal with. You see a lot of mistakes that get made in this whole process, guys.
And so I'm getting more and more irritated by this. And yeah, I can tell the flipping out guys are also pretty frustrated with the communication and such. And so finally I decided to just push the game out of the way. And so I go to fold down the head and just get it ready to store the thing. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, something's not right with that. And so I look closer, and the head is actually on there kind of cockeyed. It's the hinges were not bolted to the machine correctly. And I still have all the box and such, and I'm looking for any kind of shipping damage, and there's none. There's no indication on the back of the back box that it's been whacked or anything like that. It was bolted on crooked. And so at that point, then I'm done, and I took out my frustrations on the flipping out guys, so I probably owe them an apology for that. But they got it, and we agreed. Look, if this thing's not made right, we'll give Haggis a couple more weeks here. But if the new playfield, hinges, everything else aren't here, then we're done. Then the game goes back and they'll issue a refund. And that's what it came down to. And so, much like others, I think, I saw the Centaur get announced, and that looked pretty cool. And it had my machine been a winner, I would have deposit money down on a Centaur. But as soon as I had those problems, I lost any kind of interest in doing any more business with Haggis. And after that, I think I did see a couple other posts pop up about people having that playfield issue. And much later, I think I did see someone showing that they had actually gotten a playfield over in a beautiful box from Haggis, but that was many months after I had my issue. So I'm not sure how many people experience this, but of course, my biggest frustration, for as few games as they were making, a little thing like leg levelers not being in there, sort of excusable. The plunger, that was again getting more frustrating. So it wasn't just a little bit of an alignment like on the Stearns. This thing just was not, something was wrong with it. And the playfield, of course, if you had taken the time to play a game on this before you shipped it, you would have seen that. And of course, when you're packaging the thing up to ship, the fact that the head's on there or the back box is on there crooked, that was just preposterous.
Yeah, so you didn't really have much of a discussion between Haggis. Yours was all going towards Zach and flipping it out.
Yeah, I was fortunate in that regard. I couldn't even figure out how to reach Haggis, frankly. So no, I was able to go through Zach and Greg, and I do believe to the best of their ability to resolve this. They tried their hardest, and again, even they weren't getting communication.
So eventually, they basically accepted the game back, and you don't have to divulge what happened after that, whether it was store credit or money back or whatever. But I'm guessing that whatever happened between you and flipping out, you were satisfied.
Oh yeah, they made it right.
Okay, that's good. In your opinion, what were some red flags? When it comes to the downfall of Haggis.
Yeah, the communication. Again, if I had been a direct customer, I would still expect good communication, but I think flipping out's one or two in North America selling or representing Haggis games. And the fact that they couldn't get any kind of timely communication, that really freaked me out a little bit. I was like, well, I think they're an awfully big distributor, and if they can't get a return phone call or return email within a day, there's a serious problem there. And again, had Haggis had engaged directly or even through flipping out, had Haggis been very responsive and said, hey, look, yeah, we had a problem. We had a new guy on the line installing the hinges on the back, or there was an issue on the boat coming over. The humidity wasn't controlled and it was popping playfields off. they had owned up to it quickly, I might have said, all right, well, look, I'll keep an eye on the Centaurs and maybe I'll still grab one of those. But it was a communication. That's just for the few amount of games they're making. Yeah, that was the biggest red flag.
So, about what time period did you receive this Fathom?
Yeah, I think it was right around a year ago. It might have been July or August of 23. And then, for a couple months, we were getting promises and intermittent communication, and they're working on the crate they're going to ship over the playfield. And I was patient for a while, and then after the hinge, there was the hinges thing. That's when I got a little more upset about it, and that's when I talked to Flipping Out, and we just said, look, we'll give it a few more weeks, and if it's not in your hands by that time, then we'll undo all of this and make it right.
Aside from the communication, like, was there anything else, like, business-wise? Did you kind of get an inkling that something was definitely going down when they announced that they had to recapitalize and stuff like that towards the beginning of this year?
Yeah, well, even before that, I mean, clearly, with the delays on getting the Fathoms wrapped up, I don't make pinball machines, so I don't know what the constraints are making a pinball machine, but I would think that the playfield itself is a pretty critical part. I would think putting a cabinet together or wiring the back box or such wouldn't be quite as tricky. So if they had to send over populated playfields instead of putting those in new machines and selling those new machines, I'm purely speculating here, but if they had to do that for 2, 3, 4 people instead of selling new machines, that might have been the last straw for them.
Yeah, like from me, since I've been talking to a couple of the former employees there and stuff like that, their process for building up these playfields is unmanufacturable in my opinion. And the way they went about doing it, you had to be ultra sensitive for every hole you drilled, because if you didn't drill it correctly or too fast or whatever, it would literally crack the clear panel on top that they used to laminate. And so every little thing, so you can imagine being 80-90% all the way through to like the very end where you're applying the apron, and then that final screw causes it to spider web out. How frustrating that would be to have to dismantle, take everything off, because now it no longer looks as pretty as it used to be, kind of thing. And so you have that, and then you have what was going on with COVID, so they had to get a different supplier for this type of material. And evidently this type of material was different than what they originally experimented with, and everything seemed to be going good until things got shipped overseas and heat got involved, and that caused the whole delaminating and rising off of the playfield and everything. So that's the information that I've got. And there's places that no longer ship to Australia because things just happen en route there. They arrive and they're just messed up, I'm guessing to extreme heats on the way there or whatever. But yeah, so it's one of those things where I think their process was just unmanufacturable on a massive scale. I say massive, 200 machines, but what they were trying to do, I understand why they were wanting to do it, the reasons behind it, but for as sensitive as that material was, there's no way you would have to like go about building a machine on top of that material and just crossing your fingers that it was going to remain intact, kind of thing. That's just bad.
That's interesting because as I noticed that bulge, and again I could push on it and made it back up against whatever was underneath. It wasn't like there was some adhesive there holding it where it would stick a little bit then pop off again. There was a very clean and clear interface. So yeah, maybe it was an issue of the shipping across the U.S. in the summertime or something like that. But
yeah. And that was the thing, is that they were telling another person I spoke to on this, and then they were telling him that, no, it's not a matter of just shipping you a new playfield because it's a friction fit. Try to explain that it was something more impressive than just sending you a new playfield. When it's not. It's literally just this laminate material that's laid on top of the playfield, and they bolt everything on top of it to the playfield. There is no adhesive, like you said. There's nothing in between the layers to keep it stuck to the playfield. So heat and material and difference in temperatures is going to cause it to do what it did, to bow out. And so
that's interesting, because when I think back, I'm pretty sure the bulge was in a location where it was kind of in the center left of the playfield, so it was away from the drop targets. So it could be, just nothing was bolted down right there, and that's where it lifted.
nothing to support the playfield.
Yeah, I mean, again, I'm bummed because it's such a beautiful machine, and I laugh. I said I haven't kept an eye on the market to see if there's used ones out there, but yeah, knowing it's prone to that sort of thing, I don't know how to have any confidence with even a used one. What's going to prevent that from happening at some point in the future, even if it didn't happen yet?
It's like the system involved, I think, is the fast board system, so you would have support from fast on that. But as far as getting spare parts and stuff like that, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of them on the market right now. I mean, hell, even Zach at Flipping Out just recently posted one for 7,500 kind of thing, you know. So it's, but in my opinion, it's a bit of a roll of a dice. Granted, yes, it is a beautiful damn machine, and the Centaur. I'm sure you saw the unboxing and stuff on that. It's a beautiful damn machine. So aesthetically, they had it down aesthetically, but just manufacturing and communications, obviously, that's where things took a downpour.
Yeah. For a company that size with as few machines as they're making, I mean, that few number of customers, the fact that you can't get communication is, I've got a lot of Stern machines, and my experience with Stern Sport's been great. You know, if I have an issue, I email in and I get a response quickly. And I've had some challenging ones, and they've even brought in game designers to try and help as well. You know, and they make an awful lot of machines. So, yeah, it's I'm disappointed, but I feel very fortunate again that I hadn't dealt with Haggis direct, because I'm sure that had I been direct with them, that game would still be sitting here. I'd be waiting for a playfield, or there'd be something else going on with it, and I'd never see any more of that money back.
Yeah. So, like, from your perspective and what you may know about what's going on with this whole Haggis pinball thing, I mean, do you feel like there's anything that Damien could do to, I don't know, help or make things as good as he possibly can? I don't see him giving money back, but is there anything else that he could possibly do at this point in time?
No, I can't see it. You know, especially in today's market. I mean, we're not during COVID anymore. There's a lot of really great machines out there. The used market's come down. There's so many good choices. And you know, these remakes, they kind of fill a spot in a collection. You know, if you got a lot of newer titles, it's nice to have one of these in there just for a little variety. But there's more and more games like that coming out. Even Pulp Fiction's kind of a throwback, sort of retro style game, and who knows, there could be more coming. So no, some people suggested you need to get out of Australia, have it manufactured here in the States. I mean, if someone were to pick it up and manufacture this design of this game here in the States, it's beautiful. I'd love to have one, but not if it's bolted together in Australia, or at least not if Damien has anything to do with it. You know, if CGC were to pick it up, I might grab one.
Yeah, I think the reputation is definitely something that cannot be repaired. And it's one of those things where, yeah, I really wish someone would be able to remake these games here in the States and be able to follow through on it. I think there's a lot of things that they chose to do on building these games that they didn't have to do and still would have sold very well and made the whole manufacturing process easier. One of them, don't worry about making the playfield sledgehammer strong, you know. Secondly, don't worry about making underneath the playfield as pretty and stuff that you did. You don't need to do that. Just make sure the game works, and we won't have to worry about lifting up the playfield kind of thing. Like, I lifted up the playfield on both a Centaur and a Fathom, and it's just like it aesthetically, beautiful.
Oh yeah,
But it's just like it didn't have to make it like that, and you could have saved some money, kind of thing.
Yeah. No, even the back of the back box had the Haggis logo and kind of mirror on it. Which, you know, I don't know about you, but usually pinball machines are pushed up against the wall, so you're never going to see that.
Exactly.
Except when you unbox it, I was like, oh, it looks really cool. Okay, well.
All right, look, now I'll never see it again. Put it against the wall.
Yeah.
And if he says the money's in escrow and it's not, it's just in a bank account and it's not in escrow, then technically he can be personally liable, as well as potentially charged with fraud.